Have you ever had a moment that changed your entire life? A single night where everything you thought you knew about yourself, about love, about possibility, just shattered and rebuilt itself into something completely different. My name is Ethan, and I'm 24 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened 6 months ago, but it feels like yesterday. This is the story of how one quiet evening turned my entire world upside down, and how the person sleeping just a few feet away from me had absolutely no idea what was happening in my heart. This is my truth. This is my story. The apartment was silent, except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city filtering through our third-floor window. It was just past midnight on a Thursday in late September, and I sat on my bed with my laptop balanced on my knees, pretending to work on an article that was due the next morning, but I couldn't focus. I hadn't been able to focus for weeks. My eyes kept drifting across the small studio apartment we shared, past the makeshift divider we'd created with a bookshelf and some hanging curtains, toward the other bed, where my roommate, Marcus, lay sleeping. Even in the dim glow of my laptop screen, I could make out his silhouette. He was lying on his side, facing away from me, his broad shoulders rising and falling with each peaceful breath. One arm was tucked under his pillow, the other draped over the thin blanket that had slipped down to his waist despite the cool autumn air. I should have looked away. I knew I should have. But this had become my routine over the past month, staying up later than I needed to, watching him sleep, wrestling with feelings I'd spent my entire life trying to suppress, trying to understand, trying to accept. Marcus Chen had moved in 4 months ago, responding to my ad for a roommate after my previous one had gotten married and moved to Seattle. I'd interviewed 3 people before him, perfectly nice, all perfectly qualified. But the moment Marcus walked through my door with his bright smile and easy laugh, extending his hand for a firm handshake while apologizing for being 5 minutes late, something in my chest had tightened. "Ethan, right?" he'd said, his dark eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thanks for seeing me. I promise I'm more punctual than this first impression suggests." I'd hired him on the spot. Or rather, I'd accepted him as a roommate, though my racing heart had felt like I was making a far more significant decision. In the months since, we'd fallen into an easy friendship. Marcus was a pediatric nurse who worked long shifts at the children's hospital downtown. He was thoughtful, funny, passionate about his work, and had a way of making even the most mundane moments feel lighter. He'd leave little notes on the fridge when he worked overnight shifts. "Made extra coffee for you. Have a great day. Or your turn to buy toilet paper, roomie." We'd watch movies together on our nights off, argued playfully about everything from the best pizza toppings to whether The Empire Strikes Back was actually better than the original. Star Wars. He'd taught me how to make proper dumplings from scratch. And I'd introduced him to my obsession with true crime packets. It was perfect. He was perfect, and I was falling in love with him. The realization had hit me 3 weeks ago during a completely ordinary moment. We'd been cooking dinner together, stir-fry. Nothing fancy, and Marcus had been telling me about a 4-year-old patient who'd drawn him a picture of a superhero nurse. He was laughing, his whole face lit up with joy, gesturing with the wooden spoon, and accidentally flicking a drop of soy sauce onto his shirt. "Damn it," he'd laughed, looking down at the stain. "This always happens when I cook." And in that moment, watching him dab at his shirt with a dish towel, still smiling, still radiating that warmth that seemed to fill every corner of our small apartment, I'd felt it. A wave of emotion so powerful it had stolen my breath. I love him. The thought had been crystal clear. Undeniable, terrifying. I'd excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror, gripping the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. My heart had been pounding so hard, I could feel it in my throat. I'd known I was gay since high school, though I'd only come out to a handful of close friends. My family didn't know. My colleagues at the digital marketing agency where I worked didn't know. I'd dated a few guys over the years, nothing serious, nothing that had ever felt like this. But Marcus was straight, or at least I'd assumed he was. He'd mentioned an ex-girlfriend once, casually in passing. He'd never shown any sign of being interested in men. never given any indication that he saw me as anything other than a friend and roommate. And now here I was, lying in the darkness at 12:30 in the morning, watching him sleep like some kind of creep, my heart aching with feelings I had no right to feel and no way to express. I closed my laptop and set it aside, rubbing my hands over my face. This was getting out of control. I needed to get over this. Needed to find a way to compartmentalize these feelings before I did something stupid and ruined the best friendship I'd had in years. The problem was, being around Marcus made me happy in a way I'd never experienced before. Every morning when I heard his alarm go off, every evening when his key turned in the lock and he called out, "I'm home," my entire world got brighter. How was I supposed to just turn that off? I stood up quietly, careful not to wake him, and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, lights twinkling like fallen stars. A light rain had started to fall, creating soft halos around the street lamps. Maybe I should move out, I thought, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. Maybe that would be easier. I could make up some excuse, find a new place, put some distance between us before this gets any worse. But even as I thought it, I knew I wouldn't. I couldn't. The idea of not seeing Marcus every day, not hearing his laugh, not sharing our easy conversations over morning coffee, it felt like trying to imagine life without color. Ethan. I jumped, my heart leaping into my throat as I spun around. Marcus was sitting up in bed, rubbing his eyes. His hair was messy, sticking up in different directions, and he was wearing the faded Blue Jays t-shirt he always slept in, I said, trying to sound casual despite my pulse hammering in my ears. "Sorry, did I wake you?" "Nah, He yawned, stretching his arms over his head. The movement made his shirt ride up slightly, revealing a strip of his stomach, and I quickly looked away. "I woke up and heard you moving around. You okay? It's late?" "No, I'm fine. Just couldn't sleep. You know how it is." He studied me for a moment, his expression concerned even through his sleepiness. This was so typically Marcus, always noticing, always caring. "You been staying up pretty late recently?" he said softly. "Is everything all right?" "Work stuff." "No," I thought. "It's you. You're what's keeping me up. You're all I can think about, and it's tearing me apart." "It's just some deadlines," I lied. "Nothing major. Go back to sleep, Marcus." "You have an early shift tomorrow." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but hey, if you need to talk about anything, I'm here, you know. We're friends." Friends. The word landed like a stone in my chest. "I know," I managed. "Thanks." He gave me one more searching look, then lay back down, pulling the blanket up to his shoulders. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out again. Falling back into the rhythm of sleep, I stayed by the window for a long time, watching the rain, feeling the weight of everything. I couldn't say, pressing down on my shoulders like a physical thing, what I didn't know. What I couldn't have known was that Marcus wasn't actually asleep, that he was lying in the darkness with his eyes closed, his own heart racing, wrestling with feelings that mirrored my own, and that everything was about to change. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Marcus moving around the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through our window, and for a moment, just a brief, blessed moment before full consciousness returned, everything felt normal. Then I remembered last night, my vigil, my confession to myself. The way Marcus had caught me standing at the window like some melancholy protagonist in a sad indie film. I groaned and pulled my pillow over my face. "Morning, sunshine." Marcus's voice was too cheerful for whatever ungodly hour this was. "I made your favorite extra strong, just a splash of milk." I emerged from under my pillow to find him standing at the foot of my bed, holding out a mug of coffee with a smile that made my chest ache. He was already dressed for work in his scrubs, his hair still damp from the shower. "What time is it?" I asked, my voice rough with sleep. 7:30. "I have to leave in 10 minutes, but I wanted to make sure you actually woke up. You looked pretty exhausted last night." I sat up, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Thanks. You didn't have to do that, I know." He sat down on the edge of my bed, and I became acutely aware that I was wearing nothing but boxer shorts and an old t-shirt. My hair probably sticking up in 12 different directions, Listen, I've been thinking. My stomach dropped. Here it comes. He's noticed how weird I've been acting. He's going to ask me what's going on. And I'm going to have to either lie to his face or confess everything and watch our friendship crumble. We should do something this weekend, he continued, oblivious to my internal panic. I have Saturday night off for once, and I feel like we haven't really properly hung out in a while. Maybe we could check out that new Korean barbecue place that opened on 8th Street? My treat. I blinked at him, caught off guard. You want to take me to dinner? Well, yeah. I mean, if you're free? I just thought. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as something he did when he was nervous. I feel like you've been stressed lately, and I thought it might be nice. No pressure, though. If you're busy, or if you'd rather know. I said, perhaps too quickly. I cleared my throat. I mean, yeah. That sounds great. I'd like that. His smile returned, brighter than before, and something in his eyes made my heart skip. Cool. It's a date, then. It's a date. The words hung in the air between us, and for a second, I could have sworn I saw something flicker across his expression in certainty. Hope? Fear? I couldn't tell. Then he glanced at his watch and jumped up. Shit, I'm going to be late. We'll figure out details later, okay? He grabbed his bag and jacket, pausing at the door to look back at me. Have a good day, Ethan. You too, I managed. The door closed behind him and I sat there in stunned silence. The coffee growing cold in my hands. It's a date. He'd probably just meant it casually. People said that all the time. It didn't mean anything, did it? The next 2 days passed in a blur of anticipation and anxiety. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the constant loop of thoughts about Saturday night. Was it actually a date? Was I reading too much into a casual phrase? Should I dress up? Act normal? Confess my feelings over Korean barbecue and potentially ruin everything? Marcus seemed normal, cheerful, friendly, occasionally leaving sweet notes on the fridge. But I'd caught him watching me a few times with an expression I couldn't quite read. And whenever I tried to ask if he was okay, he'd flash that easy smile and change the subject. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm weather, the kind of perfect autumn evening that felt like a gift. I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing what to wear, finally settling on dark jeans and a navy button-down shirt that my friend Sophie had once said brought out my eyes. Marcus emerged from the bathroom at 7 o'clock, and my breath caught. He was wearing black jeans and a deep green Henley that hugged his frame in ways that should probably be illegal. His hair was styled, not just air-dried, like usual, and he'd put on Colin something warm and woody that made me want to lean closer. Ready? He asked, and was it my imagination, or did his voice sound slightly nervous? Yeah, I said. You look really nice. His cheeks colored slightly. Thanks. So do you. The walk to the restaurant took 15 minutes, and we fell into our usual easy conversation. He told me about a little girl at the hospital who'd insisted on giving him a makeover with her toy makeup kit. And I filled him in on the nightmare client who kept requesting revisions to a campaign, so we'd already launched. But underneath the normalcy there was something else. An electricity in the air between us. Our hands kept brushing as we walked, and neither of us pulled away. The restaurant was cozy and warm, with low lighting and the sizzle and smoke of tabletop grills filling the air with delicious aromas. We were seated at a corner booth, close and intimate, and Marcus ordered us a feast brisket, pork belly, bulgogi, bonchin, and 2 Korean beers. This is amazing, I said after the first bite of perfectly grilled meat. How did you find this place? One of the nurses at work is Korean. She's been raving about it for weeks. He took a sip of his beer, watching me over the rim of the glass. I wanted to bring you somewhere special. There was something in the way he said it's special that made my heart race. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing like it always did, but there was an undercurrent of something new, something building. Our knees touched under the table. His foot brushed against mine and stayed there. Every time his eyes met mine, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Ethan, he said suddenly, setting down his chopsticks. His expression had turned serious. Can I ask you something? My mouth went dry. Sure. He took a deep breath, and I watched his hands fidget with his napkin, that nervous gesture again. The other night, when I found you at the window, were you really just working? Or is there something else going on? I froze. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and longing for in equal measure. I started, then stopped. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Why do you ask? Because I care about you, he said simply. And I feel like there's something you're not telling me. Something that's been bothering you. He paused, his dark eyes searching mine. Is it? Is it about me? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility and danger. I could lie. I could laugh it off, make some excuse, protect our friendship and my heart by keeping everything locked away where it was safe, or I could take the leap. Yes, I whispered, the word barely audible over the noise of the restaurant. It's about you. Marcus went very still. Tell me. I closed my eyes, gathering every ounce of courage I possessed. When I opened them again, his gaze was waiting, patient and intense. I have feelings for you, Marcus. Real feelings. I've been trying to hide them, trying to make them go away, but I can't. And I know this probably ruins everything, and I know you're straight. And I'm so sorry if this makes things weird, but you asked, and Ethan. He reached across the table and took my hand, his fingers warm and solid around mine. I'm not straight. The world stopped. What? I breathed. I'm bisexual, he said, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. I have been for as long as I can remember. The ex-girlfriend I mentioned? That was real. But so were the 2 boyfriends I had before her. He laughed, a slightly shaky sound. I thought you knew. I thought I'd made it obvious, but I guess I was being too subtle. I had no idea. I noticed you, Ethan. From the very first day. His grip on my hand tightened. The way you smiled when you opened the door. The thoughtful questions you asked during the interview. The book on your shelf about queer history that you probably thought I didn't notice. I noticed everything. My vision was starting to blur. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wasn't sure how you felt. Because I was scared of ruining our friendship. Because every time I tried to work up the courage to tell you, you'd get this distant look in your eyes, and I'd convince myself I was imagining things. He smiled, soft and vulnerable. Turns out we were both idiots, huh? I laughed, a wet, relieved sound. Massive idiots. So when I said this was a date, he leaned closer. I meant it. I've wanted you for months. Ethan, I've been falling for you piece by piece, day by day, and I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Tears were sliding down my cheeks now, but I didn't care. I love you, I said. The words I'd been holding back for so long, finally breaking free. God, Marcus, I love you so much it hurts. I love you too, he whispered, his own eyes bright with emotion. Come here, he stood, pulling me up with him. And then his arms were around me, and his lips were on mine. And the entire restaurant could have disappeared, and I wouldn't have noticed or cared. The kiss was everything gentle and desperate, sweet and intense, an answer to every question I'd been asking myself in the darkness of our apartment while he slept. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing away my tears, and I kissed him back with everything I had, trying to pour for months of longing into this single perfect moment. When we finally broke apart, breathless and smiling, I realized the entire restaurant had gone quiet. Then someone started clapping within seconds. The whole place erupted in applause and cheers, and Marcus buried his face in my neck. Laughing, we just became a dinner show, he mumbled against my skin. Worth it, I said. Holding him tight, we didn't let go. Of each other's hands for the rest of the night, after settling the bill, Marcus insisted on paying. As promised, we walked back to our apartment through streets that seemed to glow with possibility. The city had never looked more beautiful. Every light, every sound, every cool autumn breeze felt charged with significance. I can't believe this is real, I said as we climbed the stairs to our floor. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and realize I imagined the whole thing. Marcus stopped on the landing and pulled me close, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. If this is a dream, we're both having it. And I, for one, never want to wake up. It's inside the apartment. Everything looked exactly the same as when we'd left the unmade beds, the books scattered on various surfaces. The string lights we'd hung around the window, casting the same warm glow, but everything was different. We were different. Marcus took off his jacket and hung it carefully on the hook by the door, then turned to face me. In the soft light, his expression was open, vulnerable, beautiful. "So," he said, a slight smile playing at his lips, "what happens now?" I crossed the space between us, reaching up to cup his face in my hands. "Now we stop sleeping in separate beds? Is that so?" His arms circled my waist, pulling me flush against him. "And what exactly are you proposing, Mr. Morrison?" "I'm proposing," I said, pressing a kiss to the corner of his mouth, "that we start this thing properly. Date nights, morning coffee in bed, all of it. No more pretending, no more hiding." He kissed me slowly, deeply, taking his time in a way that made my knees weak. I liked the sound of that. We moved to my bed. It was slightly bigger than his aunt. Lay down facing each other, legs tangled, foreheads touching. This close, I could count the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Tell me something," Marcus murmured, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. "When did you know? When did you realize you had feelings for me?" 3 weeks ago, I admitted. "We were making stir-fry, and you flicked soy sauce on your shirt, and I just knew. It hit me all at once." I smiled at the memory. "What about you?" "Honestly." "The day I moved in," he laughed at my surprised expression. I know. But there was something about the way you helped me carry boxes. The way you'd already cleared space in the closet for me. The way you'd bought my favorite coffee, even though I'd only mentioned it once during the interview. You were so thoughtful, so genuinely kind. And when you smiled..." He shook his head. "I was a goner. For months," I said softly. "We wasted for months being afraid." "No," he tilted my chin up, making me meet his eyes. "We didn't waste anything. We built a friendship, a foundation. We learned each other. And now we get to build something even better on top of that." He was right. Every movie night, every shared meal, every conversation, an inside joke, all of it had led us here. Not wasted. Essential. We talked for hours, lying there in the gentle darkness. We talked about everything, our pasts, our hopes, our fears about starting this relationship. Marcus told me about coming out to his family in college, about his parents' initial struggle to accept it and their eventual wholehearted support. He told me about his first boyfriend, about heartbreaks and healing, about the journey to accepting every part of himself. I shared my own story, growing up in a small conservative town. The terror and relief of acknowledging my sexuality in high school. The decision to stay closeted around my family to keep the peace. I told him about the loneliness I'd felt for so long, the sense of never quite fitting anywhere. "You fit here," Marcus whispered, pulling me closer. "With me, you fit perfectly." Somewhere around 3 in the morning, exhaustion finally caught up with us. I could feel myself drifting, warm and safe in Marcus's arms, happier than I could remember being in years. "Ethan." His voice was sleepy, soft. "Thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth." I pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. "Thank you for being brave enough to ask." I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and the unfamiliar but wonderful sensation of someone's arm wrapped around my waist. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember where I was or why I felt so content. Then it all came rushing back, and I smiled. Marcus was still asleep, his face peaceful and soft in the morning light. One hand was splayed across my stomach, the other tucked under his cheek. His hair was messy, falling across his forehead, and I couldn't resist reaching up to brush it back gently. His eyes fluttered open, and the smile that spread across his face when he saw me made my heart skip. "Morning," he mumbled, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning," I whispered back. He pulled me closer, nuzzling into my neck. "This is nice. This is perfect." We stayed like that for a while, just holding each other. neither of us in any hurry to move. Eventually, though, the need for coffee became too strong to ignore. In the kitchen, I started the coffee maker while Marcus rummaged in the fridge. He emerged with eggs, cheese, and vegetables, setting them on the counter with a determined look. "What are you doing?" I asked, laughing. "Making my boyfriend breakfast," he said matter-of-factly, then paused. "Is that okay? Calling you my boyfriend?" My chest filled with warmth. "More than okay," he grinned, and turned back to the stove. And I watched him move around our small kitchen with the easy familiarity of someone who belonged there. Because he did. He belonged here with me, and I belonged with him. Over omelets and coffee, we talked about practical things, how to tell our friends, whether to rearrange the apartment now that we'd only need one bed, what to do about my family. Marcus was immediately supportive of whatever timeline I needed for that conversation. "No pressure," he said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "We move at whatever pace feels right for you. I'm not going anywhere." After breakfast, we pushed the bookshelf divider to the side and merged our two small spaces into one larger room. It felt symbolic, tearing down the barrier that had separated us. Marcus's bed became our reading nook, piled with pillows and blankets. My bed became our bed. As we worked, he kept finding excuses to touch a hand on the small of the back. Fingers brushing while moving books, stolen kisses between rearranging furniture. It felt like being a teenager again, giddy and hopeful and slightly overwhelmed by the intensity of it all. That evening, we curled up on our newly designated reading nook to watch a movie. Marcus had chosen a romantic comedy, something light and sweet, but I couldn't focus on the screen. I was too aware of him beside me, his warmth, his presence, the way he absently played with my fingers as we watched. "What are you thinking about?" he asked during a slow scene. "Just how different things are from 24 hours ago. How I was so scared, and now—" I gestured between us. "Now I'm the happiest I've ever been." He shifted to face me fully, his expression serious. "I want you to know something, Ethan. This isn't just some casual thing for me. I'm all in. I want the real thing, the good days and the hard days, the adventures and the boring Sundays, all of it. With you?" Emotions welled up in my chest, almost too big to contain. "I want that too. All of it." "Good." He kissed me softly. "Because you're stuck with me now. Promise. Promise." The apartment was warm despite the December cold outside, filled with the smell of the dumplings we'd just finished making together. Our friends were coming over in an hour for game night. I was setting out snacks, while Marcus arranged chairs in our newly reorganized living space. So much had changed in 3 months, yet so much had stayed wonderfully the same. We'd told our friend group about us the week after our first date, and their reactions had ranged from "Finally, Sophie, to wait, you weren't already dating?" Marcus's work friend, David. The acceptance and support had been overwhelming in the best way. I'd come out to my parents last month. It hadn't been easy, and their reaction had been mixed. But Marcus had held my hand through the phone call and reminded me afterward that I'd been brave, that I'd lived my truth, and that was what mattered. We'd fallen into rhythms, morning kisses over coffee, goodnight talks before falling asleep tangled together, weekend farmers market trips, quiet evenings reading side by side. We'd had our first fight about whose turn it was to do dishes, resolved within an hour with apologies and laughter. We'd celebrated Marcus's 30th birthday with a surprise party that had made him cry happy tears. Every day, I fell more in love with him. Not in the overwhelming, all-consuming way of those early weeks, but in a deeper, steadier way that felt like coming home, Marcus said now, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. "You okay? You've got that thoughtful look again." I leaned back against him, tilting my head to press a kiss to his jaw. Just thinking about that night. The Korean barbecue, the confession, all of it. "Best decision I ever made," he murmured against my hair. "Asking you on that date, best decision I ever made was saying yes." I turned in his arms to face him. "And telling you the truth, what would you tell yourself? If you could go back to that night when I was sleeping, and you were standing by the window, wrestling with everything you were feeling, I thought about it, that version of me, so scared and lonely, convinced that love was something that happened to other people. I'd tell myself to hold on, that it's going to be scary, but it's going to be worth it. That the person sleeping across the room feels the same way. That in a few months I'll wake up next to him every morning and it'll feel like the most natural thing in the world. I smiled. I tell myself that happy endings aren't just for movies. Sometimes they happen to us too. Marcus's eyes were bright with emotion. I love you, Ethan Morrison. I love you too. Marcus Chen. The doorbell rang, our friends arriving, but we took one more moment. Just the two of us, foreheads pressed together in our warm apartment. In the life we'd built together, I thought about that night 3 months ago. Standing at the window, watching Marcus sleep, thinking my feelings were impossible and one-sided. I couldn't believe what had happened while my roommate slept. Couldn't believe that my whispered confession to the universe had somehow been answered. That the love I'd been so afraid to admit had been waiting for me all along. But here we were, together, happy, home, and it was better than anything. I could have imagined 1 year later. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked. Looking around the new 2-bedroom apartment with its bigger kitchen and actual separate bedroom, I wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my chin on his shoulder. Completely sure. We need the space. Plus, I gestured to the 2nd bedroom. You've been talking about wanting a home office for months, or a nursery, he said softly. Someday. When we're ready, my heart swelled. We'd been having these conversations more often lately about futures, about families, about all the beautiful possibilities ahead of us. Someday, I agreed. But for now, let's just enjoy having a bedroom door we can actually close. He laughed and turned in my arms, pulling me close. In the empty apartment, surrounded by boxes and new beginnings, we stood together in the winter sunlight streaming through the windows. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For being brave that night, for telling me the truth, for giving us this chance. I kissed him softly, pouring everything I felt into a gratitude, love, hope, joy. Thank you, I replied, for asking. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, we had everything we needed each other. And the courage to keep choosing love, day after day after day, and that was the real happy ending. Not the confession, not the first kiss, but the ongoing choice to build a life together. To wake up every morning and choose each other all over again. It was messy and beautiful and real. It was ours, and I wouldn't change a single moment.